Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of It's Just a Phase. Today, I am joined with my friend Sharon Blue. Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
Hello, thanks for joining me.
Thank
And you are just the perfect person to talk about what we do here at Blue Moon Growth Co., which is about bringing the woo-woo to the workplace. So I'm really excited to chat with you and just kind of talk about your experience. Sharon is an intuitive tarot reader, full-time now. But she also has her master's in school counseling, and she has a prior career working with middle schoolers and being a school counselor. So it's a really great opportunity for her to use her intuitive gifts as well as her education and bring that to a different type of intuitive tarot reading experience. So again, who better to talk to about those two different things, which is exactly what I do here. So I think that's why when we met, we hit it off a little bit. We both have interest in the same thing. So what do you think? Like how, well, first tell us a little bit about you and like your background and kind of how you got here.
Yeah, sure. So basically I've been weird for a long time. And I always thought I was different growing up. I was that weird kid that always just wanted to run barefoot in the grass and play in the mud.
And everyone's always like, put some shoes on. You're like, no.
Yeah, I'm like, why? It's nice. I like being barefoot all the time. Yeah, I was that weird kid. Growing up, I didn't really get along with a whole lot of people. So I was like sitting in the back of the class, reading my books by myself, isolating. And then as I kept growing, I just realized that there were a lot of weird kids that felt like they didn't have support. And so I wanted to grow up and be that support for them. So I studied psychology and English in college and then got my master's in school counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was a school counselor here in St. Louis for 7 years, and I absolutely loved it. Thousands of students later, and I miss all of them. But yeah, it is interesting being someone in the real life and then having to kind of be someone else in the professional life.
Yeah.
And figure out how to marry the two of them, I guess. So yeah, it's interesting. I think I found that the thing that worked the most was having a small circle of trusted individuals in my workplace who knew the real me and I could talk to if I needed to and have that like support system. And then I could be that professional person with a different face to, different teachers, parents, administrators, etc., until I got to know them better. And
yeah, that's exactly the struggle, right? Is like you want to be your true self, but you feel like you have to back away from it a little bit so you're not too weird. But it's, I feel like all of us weirdos are like, we all end up in a profession. If we do go into a career, realm, we end up in a profession where we are helping people for that exact same reason that you said. We identify with the need to feel accepted and to have that support structure. So when you do kind of go that path and you end up in whatever profession it is that you're working, to help people, whatever that means, then, you're still that person, you're still that kid who needs that support system. So it's super important to be able to have that support structure. And I think what I've come to realize too is it kind of led to what I do here at Blue Moon, but it's really important to have that support. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to believe in all the same things or do all of the same things. But I know my husband's going to listen to this and laugh, but like a few years ago, we had kind of like a battle. He does not believe in anything I believe in. But we had a conversation and I was like, I don't need you to believe in anything I believe in, but I need you to believe in me. And I think that was a big shift. And he is very supportive of everything I do now, or he pretends to be to keep me happy. But it's just super important to be able to have that support structure, not just in your personal life, but at work too, so that you can kind of bridge the gap.
I will never forget the year. So I started reading tarot when I was in high school, but then kind of went on a tarot hiatus a little bit mid-college till like right after I had my first son. And I was like, I really miss it. I miss that connection, that daily like self-check-in. I miss that. And so my husband ended up getting me a tarot deck for Christmas that year. And I remember after I got it for Christmas, I had already built relationships with people in my workspace, come back from winter break, and everyone, oh, what'd you get for Christmas? How was your Christmas? And I told a few, so since I was a counselor, we had a counseling department. We were like sectioned off into a section of the building, and it was like, this is the guidance area. So we had the two counselors.
This is your corner.
Yeah, we had our counseling corner.
Yeah.
And it was like counselor, social worker, the outside provider, counselor, and then our guidance secretary, who we all love. And I told my guidance secretary and my other counselor and our social worker that I had gotten a tarot deck for Christmas. And this was kind of my first real foray into introducing my real self to them.
Yeah.
Not only were they shocked and surprised, but all of them were like, so are you going to bring it to work? And are you going to tell me about my future? And do I get a New Year's Eve reading? And did it like immediately? So when do I get a reading?
Yeah.
So I think that people are more accepting than you would think. I feel like if you have a spectrum, like the majority of people are going to err on the side of support than they are on the side of like complete avoidance and hatred of you and whatever. I think people are more accepting than you think. And I think curiosity is very strong. And so an opportunity to educate people about the woo-woo, because I think a lot of it is super misunderstood, is
it's misunderstood, and it's not as scary as people think it is. You know, it's funny now that TikTok is like huge, and I don't stop with the TikTok. And of course it's, automatically the algorithm picks up witch talk. I'm all over witch talk. And there's just so much of conversation surrounding like how much of the woo woo like normal people do every day, and they don't know they're doing it. Like black cats. Like it's a superstition. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. It's a belief. It's a belief system. It's something you avoid or don't avoid. And you're more cognizant of it or not. And that can be said for anything, any practice. 100%. It's no different than if you're Catholic and you go to church and you eat the cracker or you drink the wine. Like it's the blood of Christ and the body. Like it's
that's ritual. That is ritual. That is legit ritual. And when you say that's the body of Christ and that's the blood of Christ, hello, sacrifice.
Yeah. I think normalizing the words, especially that are used, and that's why I kind of like woo-woo. It's like a fun term, you know what I mean? And it's one of my taglines, like bringing woo-woo to the workplace, because it's not scary and it's not creepy, and we're all doing it every day. Just some people don't know what it is they're doing.
Exactly. 100%.
So I have to imagine like your intuition played a huge part in working with kids. So like, what were some things like before you kind of told them like, hey, I'm reading tarot and this is what I do? Was there anything that you think that they were able to kind of pick up on that they were like, oh, like I do know that she does that, and maybe we're able to start connecting the dots?
A little bit. So I think, again, it's kind of like knowing it and practicing it without having words and vocabulary to put to it.
Yeah.
All of my administrators, all of my teachers, all of my coworkers knew she has a way with kids, quote, and like she somehow, quote, knows what to say. And so I think they were kind of rationalizing in their mind of, well, she has a specific skill set. Right. Or she's very empathetic, or she's a people person. And in reality, I'm very much an introvert, and I don't like putting myself out there, and I don't like introducing myself and being in those situations, but I am a little bit empathic. And so I can get in front of a kid and I can feel either rage and they're getting ready to punch someone, or this intense sadness and feel of unsafetyness. And so I can tap into what they're feeling and then respond appropriately to get them to calm down and make a decision. And so that was just me using that empathicness and that intuitiveness to know what to say and how to say it to get the, end result that was best for that kid. But what the other adults were seeing was, oh, she's just really good with kids, or here's a difficult situation. Let's throw Sharon into it.
She's the best.
Fight that fight, Sharon.
Yeah, it must be all those years of education that did that.
I know. But then it's like you have other counselors and other people who are in similar professions who aren't quite as good with the difficult ones specifically. I think, and I say the difficult ones with love because they were my favorites. One of my former teachers that I worked with used to call one of our difficult kids a Sour Patch Kid. And I loved it so much because it's like they have that sour exterior, but then once you can get through that,
they're sweet.
Louis Center. Yeah. And so I think a lot of my kids that I was working with were really just responding based on trauma. And once I was able to figure out what was going on inside, then I could tap in and help them work through it and help them become better. But yeah, a lot of my administrators or coworkers would just see what I was doing and they would just be like, how do you do that? How do you get that kid to do what you want them to do, but they won't sit still in my class? And I'm like, well, I'm responding to them the way they need to be responded to.
And what you do is so important to me. Working in the adult realm, in the adult education and HR and all of that, it's so important to be able to identify and treat that trauma as children before you're an adult and you're out there on your own and you're in the workplace and now you're impacted by all of these other people with trauma. And I think we're seeing a lot more of this in the corporate realm of like training for empathy and emotional intelligence. And it's so funny. Just the other day, I got an email and it was like, self-help type stuff that they're encouraging employees to do, which is fantastic. And the topic was intention setting. And I'm like, I text a friend of mine. I'm like, this is witchcraft in the workplace. And I'm like, all it was missing was talking about the moon. Like that.
Really? I love it. That's hilarious.
And I love that as a society, we are starting to get to the point where that is considered normal, and it's encouraged, but it really does start in school. And I'm sure, that could be an entire other episode about opinions on the school system.
Even just the introduction of mindfulness and yoga practices into the school as a way of starting the day, especially for kids who are like getting into detention or in school suspension, or kids who are angry and instead of going to the principal's office, you go to the cool down room.
Yeah.
Having this mindset of anger is a response to something. And once you can figure out the process, then you can stop it in its tracks and prevent an outcome that is negative for both the school and the child, and the other child involved too. Yeah. But yeah, we're seeing so much more of an insurgence in this idea of mindfulness and getting the mind right and recognizing neural patterns and cognitive processing and how trauma relates to all of that, and how educators and school districts really have to focus on not just educating our students' minds in terms of, science and social studies, math and English, but also educating our students' minds in terms of how to take care of themselves and how to respond differently and how to think through a situation instead of just responding with an emotional response. And I commend the work that educators are doing now and the steps they are taking and the way they're moving towards that. I think there needs to be more of it. I think there needs to be more counselors in schools, more social workers in schools, more time in the day set towards those practices and giving students an opportunity to hone those skills.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we're moving in the right direction. And you're right, it's becoming so much more mainstream. Like, I mean, we were talking about SMART goals with kids, and what's a SMART goal if not an intention?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I explain it to everybody all the time. They're like, well, what is an intention? How do we say? I'm like, it's a goal. It's, specific, measurable, like all of the above.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I know.
It's super interesting. And I have so many opinions on how it bridges, from the childhood realm into being an effective adult and then impacting a community as a worker. In many of these kids, I'm sure, the support that they're getting is in school. Like they go home, and that's not always, but most of the time where the majority of the issues are coming from. And if their safe haven is school, it's very important that that is where they're learning those effective skills. And especially with COVID, I think like two things happened. For those kids who do have difficulty at home, that got worse, right? But I think that we as a community as a whole were like, hey, I think we recognize that like that was what was missing. Not that, education and history and all that stuff is not important. It is. But what the kids really missed out on for a year was social development and emotional development. And parents recognize that like, hey, I can't do this. Like, this isn't what I do. And so I think as we kind of start to return to normal a little bit, hopefully that focus stays there.
Yes, 100%. And I think, the other interesting thing about, making, witchcraft, et cetera, witchy woo-woo stuff mainstream is that people are starting to recognize that not only do you need to have a balance between like work life, but there's an inner outer balance that needs to happen as well.
Yeah.
And I think COVID really brought that into perspective for a lot of people, because I think everyone was so focused on outer prior to COVID. They were so focused on where their energy was going. Like, okay, my house has to be clean, and I have to get the kids to this practice and this thing and this thing, and their school has to be good, and I have to do this.
Go.
Social, and everything was out. And then with COVID, it was like, oh,
now I got to look at me.
Now all I got is what's in my house and what's inside me. And people were kind of quickly realizing, ooh, what's
finding their shadow a little bit.
Is it working that well? Yes, 100%. And I think it gave a lot of people time to really focus on what they need to work on internally. And that's a huge woo-woo thing, because shadow work. I know I was saying to someone else a little while ago that like I feel like I've been doing shadow work my whole life, because I've either been in counseling or I've been counseling other people. But it's like that's
no shortage of words.
We don't call it shadow work, we call it therapy.
Yeah.
And so, but it's like the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, I need to do like obviously stems in Jungian philosophy, and I need to like get back to that and do a lot more reading on it, because I know it's on the outer side and I tap into it a little bit. But if I wanted to go to school for psychology forever ago, and when I was in high school, and I was just too stubborn. I was like, I don't want to go to school for that long. Like, I am not a good student. It's kind of funny. You just said the counselor or the counseled. I don't like being a student, but I love teaching. It's like, I love, and when I say teaching, I mean, I love like watching somebody be able to achieve something that they couldn't before and helping them build those skills to do that. Yes. And I've heard the same thing that you've heard, that like, you just have a way of talking to people. Like you're really good at just explaining things the way that they need it to be explained. And it's the same thing. Like, I'm reading them, I'm understanding how they need it to be understood, and I can adjust my language one way or another, or my behavior to be able to help them along. So it's the same thing with any teacher, any good teacher,
Yes.
And instead of being in front of a classroom, I'm working either with management or with business owners or one-on-one with employees. And that is my favorite part of HR, is the development aspect. So
Wow.
it's, yeah, it all just kind of comes together at some point
Yeah.
in your life and you're like, oh, this is why I'm good at it. And, I got drawn to HR because it had these psychological components to it while also having that business piece that I needed. As a
Mhm.
kid, I needed black and white
Yeah.
because everything was just so jumbled up here until I figured out why. So I really was drawn to the business side because I'm like, that seems more like direct. Like there's something you have to do. There's a little bit of a checklist involved.
Oh my
And
God.
I started with accounting. It was too checklisty. And I bounced around a few majors and eventually I was like, I don't know what this HR thing is, but I'm just going to do it. It looks like some psychology classes. And like, here I am way too many years later. I'm looking at the years in my head. I think anybody who's a little witchy or woo woo kind of, or is drawn towards that inner work eventually ends up in a field similar. And you just want to help people.
Yeah. And I think, it's so important because there are so many people that need that help, and they need those people who are willing to step in and be that person to assist them and walk them through that journey. That, whether it's, what's the saying? A season or a reason or a season or something like that.
I don't know that one. There's a reason for the season. Is that it?
No, it's like you're friends or someone for either a reason, a season, or for years or something like that. And it's basically like the people you meet are put into your life either for a reason or a season of your life of like walking you through a specific difficult moment, or like years, like to walk in your life with your journey with you on the path for many years. But it's like at the end of the day, it's still a reason. There's still something that draws people to other people. And I think it's important for those people that do feel called to be put in those positions and be able to make that change for other people.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
well, it was awesome talking to you. I'm sure we'll talk again soon in our witchy lives. So you can find Sharon at blueempresstarot.com. You can find her on Facebook. You can find her on Instagram. I will put up a link in this video and in this audio when it's posted. And it was great chatting with you, and I'll hope to do it again soon.
Thank you. So good talking to you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.